an introduction really
necessary.
Konnichiwassup, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. You know what's happening. It's deep dive. This time we're doing something else. Anyway, if it's the first time you're on this channel, you know what to do. Subscribe, tell your friends to join the channel and be part of the family. And you know what to do, man. Go share the video, go share everything else that's on the channel. But right now, we're about to get into something very serious, man. I'm trying to change my content a little bit, you know, just delve into some other social issues that I never really get into. So this piece today is mostly a journalistic piece. It's mostly a bigger piece than I am. It's bigger than I am, you know, it's bigger than everything else that I stand for. But I just thought it was something that I wanted to talk about. But anyway, today we're talking about prostitution in Lesotho. Let's get into it. First things first, let's talk about this. I recently got into a Facebook post. I forgot what I was searching for, but I was looking for an auction piece. Actually, I was looking for an auction piece, and then I actually got into this, introduced into this space, into this world where everything else was so crazy that I did not even imagine it. I could never actually ever fathom that Lesotho Monalande is actually this crazy amount of people, you know, this crazy number of people who are actively working with sex work, you know, who are actually sex workers. So let's talk about this, right? I was on Facebook, just scrolling, going through my own things, and then I got introduced to a group called Dikwena. I'll bring it up just now. So Dikwena was basically a group that was, I don't know, you could think national team because our national team is Dikwena, but it really wasn't. And then after getting into that, I realized, okay, no man, this thing is bigger than me, you know, it's bigger than what I actually thought it was. When I opened it, when I got into the group, I saw a post that was basically saying, how do I describe this? It was basically somebody selling, you know how you'd sell like a microphone that you're trying to sell or get off, read off, or you're trying to sell like shades or something. But this was something else, something creamer. This is a serious piece. I have to remember that. But anyway, I got into the piece and then I realized that, oh, weird. This group is it's a Facebook group that basically has over 20-something K subscribers, actually, and members and participants. Got into the group, and then I realized what was happening. Somebody would post, basically the location where they are. I posted, okay, ke Lesotho, ke Maseru kapo ke Qwading, ke na le ntlo round ke 60 ranta, and the whole day ke 200, and overnight is like 300. So I realized there are so many posts. It's active. There's people who are actually participating. But when I was selling them, but I realized something else. Behind this thing, these accounts were basically catfish accounts. You know, they were banner accounts, and you could not necessarily know who actually ran them. You get into the account, you realize, so behind these accounts, you only have like 2 friends or 24 friends, but the account has been active for like 4 years. And basically it's groups, it's how sex workers are actually working now in the digital age in Lesotho. So the thing that first of all caught my attention was the number of participants. Like I already said, it was already crazy. And then I discovered more groups, because inside the groups themselves there was something else going on. There was something crazier. There was the reality of me realizing that these people are sharing posts from other groups. So from Dikwena tsa Lesotho, you'd have Dikwena tsa Mapoteng, you'd have Dikwena tsa, Dikwena tsa Mapoteng, you'd have Dikwena tsa Hatetsane, tsa Hatsolo, Shedile, Tswapos, Qwading. So this was an entire network of people, and I could tell you Dikwena Hatetsane already has like 12,000 members with 10 posts plus a day, and that is a really, really, really active margin. If you know anything about groups, to have people posting that much, I would mean it's a really active group. And then you'd also have Dikwena tsa Maputso, Dikwena tsa Roma Nal with 2.6k members, and I was like shook at this, you know. The reality of this just took me to this space where I realized, oh word, the fact that we do not actively know how many people are on the streets who are actively participating in sex work, and the dire reality of what we're in is what really scared me. And then it took me to the point where I realized that for this industry to survive or actually to exist, it means there's an actual buying demand. There's demand for this. There's actually people who participate, and it goes down and it boils down to the most basic thing. There's people who are selling nudes for like $10 a pop. There's people who are selling videos of them masturbating for like 20 maluti a pop. So you'd understand how crazy this realization was. And if people don't know about this, the reality of this happening was me just stumbling onto this, looking for something else. And I think these people who actively know, or this kind of lifestyle is something that's active, there's something that's already happening, right? So let's talk about other platforms, right? In other platforms, we have platforms like, in fact, in other parts of the world, we actually have OnlyFans, and if people don't know, if you guys don't know what OnlyFans is, I'll explain it to you right now. So basically, OnlyFans is an online platform where sex workers basically sell pornography, and they engage in sexting and calling and basically just posting the pornography, them having sex with other people, the partner. Sometimes it's an intimate, sometimes they're solo creators. But for us, we have Facebook groups, and we need to talk about how much is actually how many people are actually in this part of the world. Okay, I'm gonna take one. Lesotho, for one, means the economy is so bad that people are actively getting into this. There's people who could say into this for pleasure. I don't know how the statistics are, but like basically there's people who are in it for pleasure, and then there's people who are in it for survival. Yes. So I went and did my research, and I realized that there's so much more going on, right? There's so much more going on, and people who are aware are basically like sex work, like social workers, and the World Health Organization as well. We have the USAID, we have Kapal, we have so many different organizations dealing with this. But then let's get into different reasons for sex work for Basotho, right? If you were in the States and you needed to make money and a quick buck, and you realize that you were stuck, right, and the economy is failing you, and you can't really depend on anything, you don't have a job, you don't have a qualification, you don't have anything like that, you'd realize that there's OnlyFans, and selling sex work is pretty easy, I guess, for them. I'll make an example. Here's one of my favorite creators. And I'm going to say this is my favorite creators because despite how many times I've tried to block his content away from my Twitter, somebody or something always brings it up. And this individual is Gucci Third Legs. Gucci Third Legs has like over 200,000, 200,000 subscribers on his OnlyFans. And this platform does it, helps him create content safely in the comfort of his own space. He never has to deal with clients like that. He basically just creates and he gets his money. So if a subscription on OnlyFans costs like 300, right? Not 300, but like like $3 maybe. $3 by 200k, that's like 600k, and this means this person is set for life. You bring that and you convert it to us, that's millions. That is literally millions of sex work. But the reality for our sex workers, our beloved siblings, our families, our mothers, and all of that is a different state. Okay, sharp. Reasons for sex work. Which reasons have these people stated for themselves getting into sex work? Okay, I have seen a few things. There's actually a few other creators that I've seen who we could call them creatives, right? Because they basically create this. For people who sell on Facebook, it's a different story because they got into it for different reasons. Maybe economical reasons, maybe because they needed to survive as well. So I got into this search to try and figure out what happened. Why do we have so many people? If the number of subscribers that Gucci Third Leg has on his platform, subscribers, as people who want to watch his content, how come we also have the same amount of people, like over 200,000 people actively participating but not earning as much? The reasons for this are purely socio-economical, they're purely economical as well. It's pretty much mostly survival. I'm going to read a story for you guys. So I read a few articles that I got into because I needed to find out what's most people's reasoning for getting into this, because we basically work a 9 to 5. You enter school, we have the privilege of school and all of that jazz. And yeah, like for some people, they don't have the same privileges, right? So I'm going to read this article. It's from a blog that I found. It's called Beautiful Dream Society, right? I'll basically give the link to this article so you guys can read on yourself. But basically, it was written in June 2023, so it's really, really recent. It's less than 6 months ago. The prostitution industry is rapidly, I quote, growing in areas prone to human trafficking. Prostitution is often a last resort for women in Lesotho who need to make a living. They look for any other possibility before succumbing to this lifestyle. Today, we wanted to highlight one woman's story or one woman's journey into prostitution. So basically, they gave this lady an alias in this blog, in this article. She basically goes by the name Ntati, and the reason she got into this, or these reasons. So Ntati was a domestic worker in South Africa before the COVID-19 pandemic. Once the pandemic spread to her area, she was forced to leave the position and look for work elsewhere, basically. A friend of hers offered her a job at a brothel, but she declined at first. This is what happens. We have dignity and we basically never really get into those things because, we're dignified Basotho and we're from a very, very conservative background, a conservative nation and society, right? Ntati was the only and the primary breadwinner for her family, right? There was no one else to take on her financial burden. The story is too common. Actually, the story is far too common because ideally this is the reason most people get into this. So basically, most of them had work and then they didn't, because for Ntati, as the alias, she lost her job where she was working what we call an acceptable job in our society, and then she had to come back to the reality of her not getting a job elsewhere in the same domain. So a friend offered her this piece to say, bro, I work as a prostitute and I am able to pay the bills, I'm able to go home and send money home, I'm able to support myself and everybody else who depends on me, my dependents as well. So the reasons for this are obviously socio-economical, and some of them are lifestyle influenced, right? Anyway, the reality of this thing is that in these spaces, these people are introduced to drugs, as Ntati was exposed to drugs. The brothel keeper started taking most of her money, leaving only enough for her food and rent. So basically, the pimps make sure that they survive off of this, There's so many more people on the street with the same story. I read another article, right? I went through your Lesotho Times, I went through the Post, and basically the reality of things is that these people are going through it because the reality of things is that sex work is work, actually, like any other thing. But the reasons most people get into this is that poverty in Lesotho is so extreme that so many people, specifically women, are prone to becoming victims of this. For them, it's not a choice. For them, it's something. Obviously, it boils down to a choice, but it's basically they're forced into this position where they have to come into this, right? Anyway, the reality of this from an article from the Post is that, as the Sebo describes it, it's hell on earth because there's abuse in the spaces. And she'd say this, that she got into this because she needed the money, and there's clients who do not want to use protection. The HIV prevalence is crazy. The numbers of people on the streets who are actively participating in sex work is also crazy. And let's not talk about just the ones on the streets. Let's talk about the ones on Facebook as well. Imagine that community of people who are actively participating in that, right? The thing is, most people participate in this without, they know it's dangerous, but only the sexual aspect of this. But then there's also the reality of violent clients who basically are just there to take whatever they want. They'll not use protection. They'll fight you if you basically say the service is over. There's STIs involved, and despite the effectiveness of PrEP, which is pre-exposure prophylaxis, which is most people survive with, and ideally so that they survive this, but they never really can protect themselves from everything else, because that's how crazy it is, right? So further, I've read on another article, in the same space where we were talking about the kind of people who are in this. There's an individual here that I read that basically says she supports her kids. One of her kids just literally graduated matric, and at home they don't know what she does. What's like defaming, which is mind-boggling to me. It's I don't know if it's upsetting me, but I'm just scared. I've just been scared the entire time, because these are everyday people that we see. Imagine the kind of the ones that meet in secrecy, not in the streets, nowhere. At least in the street, I could say they're more protected because there's literally people watching over them. There's a community, There's people who put up numbers like this one that I'm going to put up, where they offer the houses, their own personal spaces for men and women to come in. And this is not even the crazy part. I realized, it was the first time during my research that I realized that there's also sex work for men. Usually, I know the reality of this in the luxury sense. I know it from the clubs. I know that there's gay men who are actively open, who engage in sex work. But for people who are in the closet, who are basically hiding the sexuality from the rest of the communities, and that I knew about. But I only found out there's also men who are in the streets. So here's a story of another sex worker, a male, who says he's basically pansexual, right? But mostly he prefers men over women, and he's more attracted to men more than he is to women. But the reality is, for him to survive, he has to have sex with women, and to a point where he always has to have like Viagra and other stimulants to participate in sex work, because that's the only way he can survive. That is crazy to me. This person does not even like this. He's not even attracted. The most basic part of sex is at least arousal. He's not even aroused by what he does every single day and night, but he has to do this. This article, he says that he knows that most clients are problematic, right? He says, but for money, he often finds himself sleeping with women as part of his job as a sex worker. For the past 14 years, a man in Maseru has been doing this, and in a society that has not even criminalized same-sex marriages or same-sex relationships. I know we're a little bit more accepting now. I cannot speak on the behalf of that community, but I from what I've experienced is that we're a little bit more, at least our generation is a little bit more liberal, and we're more accepting. But he's been a gay man who's been forced to sleep with a woman because he can't survive off it. He can't survive without it. He says, I don't know what these drugs will do to my body. I am scared. He said men he sells sex to often refuse to wear condoms. I take PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, but it only protects me against HIV, which brings me back to the point that I was talking about, that these people are obviously in danger, and I don't know if I've just been blind to it. I don't know if I've been blind to it, or the whole community just sleeping to it. I know sex work is literally the oldest profession, but I did not know how integrated it is in our lifestyle. I've heard stories of students who do this. I know students. I've seen people that I'd never thought. People I know are in varsity, but they need to survive. They need to pay the bills, and they're working there. And man, this is what this guy said. So Elias, I'm gonna call him Sillo. He says that we sell sex not our bodies. There is no foreplay before intercourse, so the buyer must come prepared for or aroused and ready to do what they paid for. Sila said decriminalization of sex work is vital for the industry. It will be easier for us to have security, brothels, commodities, and lubricants. But why is nobody doing anything? Why is nobody doing anything? And the fact that every day today, like your LPPA has been working with these people, has been working with this community, and nothing else in the legal spectrum has been working towards them. That's the reality of things, Somebody's mom is working in the streets, working a corner, under the pretense that they're working in 9 to 5, like they've been working, and COVID-19 basically came in and made things worse. Like COVID-19 literally came in and made things worse, and there's nothing else we can do about it, right? So the problems associated with this are really this. Are we really going to address the reality of these people going through this trauma every single time? There's rape consistently, there's pimps, there's people who don't pay, there's people who take advantage of them, there's also even people who are part of the government, at least arms of the government who participate, but we do nothing about them. It's been a few times when I've read a few articles myself where sex workers have claimed that the police officers only for their protection have sex with them for free in exchange for protection. In what world are we living in? I don't know if I don't know if this works, but just go get on your Facebook, just go check out a group, go realize how easy it is for them to get into this. I wanted to actually do an interview with two of them this week, at least two of them, pay them like their rates for rounds or whatever, and then maybe just sit in the car and then record a conversation. Just understand the story about how they got into this, why it's like this, right? Remember this. These are the key points. There's over 200,000 people, right? 200,000, beloved, were actively participating. And I know the logic will tell you that it's not really 200,000 people. It'll tell you that it's less people, but there's actually less people, just that it's a community, right? I want to read this article that tells you about how this one other lady also got into sex work. She said that she used to work at the factories, right? She used to work at the factories. It's an article by Lesotho Times, and she would wake up every single day to queue for jobs. And she only realized later that while she was struggling, her friend who had kept her in, who had given her a place to stay, was living it up. She was not struggling. And this is how most people get into this. It's either you're tricked into this, or they tell you straight up, yo, pull up. Some people are promised jobs, and they end up, most people leave their villages basically, and they end up in sex work as sex workers, because that's the only thing this country makes them feel they're worth, or they can do to survive. From domestic worker to sex worker to turning a corner. That is basically the life cycle of the city. I'm going to be getting into this deeper on the next episode. If you want to sponsor the next episode so that we break this down a bit further than it is, further than it is. Like, I've had a lot of people talk to me about it. I've had taxi drivers tell me, bro, you won't believe the type of people that are in the streets. I don't know why there's an expectation that maybe they'd be Baledi Silanyana or something, but I've seen the finest woman in the streets, bro. I remember one time I was from a friend's place driving from like a party, and you think you're having it hard until you realize someone so pretty who would probably make it as a model maybe, or something else, a different, I don't know, a brand ambassador to some beauty brand or whatever, is in the streets turning a corner, and you're passing them by while you think you're having it hard. I saw these people in this past December, I never thought of it was that crazy. But let me give you the stats, right? This is the last one, right? According to Capel, executive director Lepiano Moswani, actually Moswani, yes, said there was no need to decriminalize. In fact, there was need to decriminalize sex work to protect sex workers from the abuse they enjoy day in, day out. He said most sex workers operated in secret for fear of humiliation and discrimination, actually. According to Integrated Biological and Behavioral Surveillance, IBBS 2019 study, about 7.5 thousand, that's 7,500 people from Maseru, Leribe and Mafiteng districts had come out as sex workers. This number is very low. We have a lot of sex workers in the country. They're hiding because of abuse and discrimination they face every day. As a country, we need to break the culture of silence on the issues of criminalization of sex work. A nation that goes silent on the issue of national interest dies a silent death, you know? And if Lesotho is trying to deal with the issue of HIV, we actually have to work towards ending this. You know, we actually have to work towards this being a crime. Section 55, subsection 1 of the Penal Code Act of 2010 describes prostitution as when a person engages in sexual activity for payment. Section 55, subsection 2 says, a person who incites, instigates, or engages or procures another to engage either in Lesotho or elsewhere for prostitution commits an offense. So basically, this means a pimp is doing a crime, you know, and then a person who lives or habitually associates with a prostitute is in such a manner as to show aiding or compelling for commercial gain commits an offense. Speaking at the same event, which was a march by Capel, Police Constable Ntabile Ntlhalele from the Child and Gender Protection Unit, CGPU, encouraged the sex workers to report abuse because no human has a right to abuse another. So this thing is going on. I don't know how much of it I've touched on, but there's so much. I feel like I'm overwhelmed with the data that I have, you know, to show you that this thing is actually happening. The numbers are actually crazy. If only 7.5 people came out, how many more people are hiding? I've seen the numbers. I've seen the reality of it. How many more people are hiding? Sponsor the next episode so that we can have someone to talk to. I don't know, talk to your friends. Let's pay for them to sit down with us. I'll hide the face. I'll censor everything. We'll only have the real stories on here. And then maybe we can have the real stories of the people in the streets who are working and tending a corner, you know? Konichiwassup is where it's at. Subscribe, tell your friends to join the conversation. It's bigger than me and you. Peace out.